Welcome back. I don't think of myself as a superstitious person in general. Most parts of my life, there's no superstitions. But when it comes to hockey, there are a few. And they've built over the years. Some of them are ones that I used to have and may not have anymore, but I wanted to come up with 10. 10's a nice round number. YouTube seems to like when it's 10. So, 10. There you go. See you later, everybody. No, we'll go over this because some of it's pretty self explanatory, but some of it's not. And I've talked about some of these superstitions I have with friends of mine and found out some people have them as well. So jerseys on game days, we'll start here. So the Canucks aren't playing today, so I can wear a Canucks jersey. Now, since the channel came into existence, I've been willing to wear jerseys of teams I root for on days they're playing because unless it's a preview video, I don't consider myself to be like officially wearing it or slash endorsing that they're going to win that night. I know, it's weird. So, jerseys on game days is something that I've had going back many, many years. And going back to when I was in high school, that if the Canucks or the Bruins are playing that day, I'm not wearing the jersey. I will wear it the day after they win. I'm not wearing it on game day. I have no idea. I have no idea how what I wear affects the team's performance on the ice. I understand logically, I understand that there's no effect, but I still don't generally do it. Again, with videos, sure, fine. But you don't see me wearing Boston, Dallas, or Vancouver in preview videos unless they're against each other for the most part. There have been a couple of exceptions here and there, but generally I don't wear them for preview videos. And there have been times where I've done that, gone against my rule and gone, whatever. And then when the team I'm rooting for loses, back in my mind, I'm like, you just had to wear that jersey for the preview, didn't you? You just had to do that. And now they lost. And so I feel like, I don't know, maybe I owe them an apology or something along those lines. But it's weird, and yet it's there. And I know I'm not the only person who doesn't wear team gear on game days. Shipping up to Boston. So going back to 2010, I want to say 2010. Anytime the Boston Bruins win a playoff game, I listen to Shipping Up to Boston before doing anything else. And again, this goes back to 2010. And 2011 was one heck of a year for Shipping Up to Boston because Boston and Vancouver met in the Stanley Cup Final. So I had a lot of superstitions all the way through those playoffs. But that was the happiest I've ever been listening to that song is when they were going to the Stanley Cup Final, both in 2011 and then in 2019 as well. And it still happens to this day. So if Boston wins a playoff game, now I don't do it during the regular season, but during the playoffs, if Boston wins a playoff game, I have to listen to that song before I do the review. I have to. I will load it up. I will play it. I don't know if I'm going to get to play it anymore this spring, but we'll see. And again, I feel like I've been lucky that Boston, I've been listening to it a lot because they've won a lot in the playoffs. So at any rate, if they're not going to win a lot in this year's playoffs, I'm all right with that. Gloating, I don't. I learned in high school, nah. And what I'm talking about is just my team's clearly going to be the best. They're going to win the cup. It's going to be great. I did that with Boston once. And then they lost against Pittsburgh, and I kind of blamed myself. I was kind of like, I did gloat there. I probably shouldn't have done that. And I don't. And it's not just on camera. It's not just other people. When I'm alone in this room, there's absolutely zero gloating that goes on. I don't even relax until the game is close to over to a point where I can say, okay, the other team can't come back and win now. Now I can breathe and I can actually say, all right, so they've won this game. I will not say it out loud. I will not gloat. I will gloat a little bit if a team I root for. So let's say we're friends and you are a huge fan of the Flames and they're against the Canucks in the Stanley Cup playoffs. If the Canucks beat the Flames, stop laughing. It does happen every now and then. But if the Canucks beat the Flames, I reserve the right the day after the Canucks knock out the Flames to just simply ask you a question. Did you see the game last night? That was an interesting game. Who won that game again? But that's as close as it gets. And generally, I don't. Because the other problem is that if you gloat after a first round win, well, you've got 3 more rounds to go. And if you gloat after a second round, and then if you're gloating when you win the Stanley Cup, you just come across as kind of a jerk. So I don't gloat. I generally don't gloat. This is the reason for the video. Number 4 is the reason for the video. So the other night, after the Canucks first game, my wife noticed. She said, "You haven't shaved." She's like, "Your face is kind of scruffy." And I admitted to her that I had realized that I needed to shave. I was like, yeah, I'm getting kind of scruffy. I need to shave. But I didn't want to shave before the Vancouver game against Nashville because I felt like it was almost playoff beard like. And I was concerned that the Canucks would lose the game if I shaved off my facial hair before the game, which led to her having a pretty good laugh at my expense. There was a lot of laughter, but I don't think I'm the only one. I don't grow a playoff beard because I look exceedingly old when I do so. But I will watch when I shave based on when teams I cheer for are playing. Although it's basically a Canucks rule. Basically. That's why when people ask, well, who's your favorite team? I'm like, yeah, it's Vancouver. Because I have more superstitions and I have more things I keep an eye on with Vancouver than anybody else. But yeah, when to shave is it's the truth. That if it's just before game time for the Canucks, I'm like, I need to shave. I better not. And it's only playoffs. Regular season doesn't matter. Regular season, I don't care. I'll shave whenever. But yeah, during the playoffs, I will be very strategic about when I shave. I don't say shutout before the game is done. I also don't talk about, all right, so they've got this game won, this is done, again, until there's that empty netter, until the game's out of reach. I won't say anything about winning at all. Because I've seen in the NHL now that it's far too common to see comebacks from 2 goals down, 3 goals down. So yeah, even if Boston's up by 3 after the second period, I'm not going to be like, well, they've got this game. This game's done. Same with Vancouver. So I've talked about when I do the reviews, where I've got all the records at the top of the board, right, during the regular season, and I'll update records and have them up there before the games are done. I do not do that for Boston, Dallas, or Vancouver games. Won't do it. I will not assume they're going to win that game. I will not assume they're going to lose that game either. So it goes both ways. But I leave it alone, and I just basically don't enunciate what I think the result's going to be because, again, it's one of those weird superstitions. And I only celebrate when the game is done, which is related to number 5, which is related to number 3. And the celebration is not quite as over the top as some. You're not going to find me dancing on a table. You're not going to find me screaming and running around. I do a little bit of a happy dance when a team that I root for wins the series. Yep, I absolutely do. I don't know that I'm going to get to do a happy dance for a team I cheer for winning a series this year. And that's part of the reason why. If you look back through my videos before the playoffs, I kept saying, I think this year could be one that sees a lot of upsets in the first round. That is directly correlated to the fact that at the time I was saying that, Boston, Dallas, and Vancouver were all leading their divisions. And all I could think was, yeah, the hockey gods have really helped me through the regular season. I'm probably going to get punished come playoff time. And members and patrons will back me up on that because I talked about that in the members video weeks ago. So this isn't something I'm just making up now. I admitted that in a members and patrons video weeks ago that I really felt like since teams I rooted for were the home ice teams in that first round that, yeah, they were probably going to get knocked off. It feels like there's a correlation between teams I root for being in the home ice favorites and not winning, and I can definitely look at that in the off season because why not? You know, here's my misery on a board. But yeah, so I don't celebrate, and I don't laugh at the poor play by a player on another team. There have been too many times in my life where I have watched a player on another team. There's Billy. He sucks defensively. Oh yeah, see that? Billy turned that puck over. That's terrible. And then July 1st rolls around, and Billy's signed by the Canucks. Awesome. And then I see fans saying, oh, he'll be great. You know, I can't wait to see what he's doing. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, this is because I made fun of him, isn't it? Or players I don't like. Players that I come out and I'm like, I can't stand that guy. And then July 1st, Vancouver, we've decided to sign this guy because that Shannon guy said he didn't like him. So we don't like Shannon either. So we signed him because why not? So I don't laugh at poor play by a player on another team because I know there's a very good chance that the next team he's going to is the one I root for. It's happened far too often, so I really don't. I'll basically say that's unfortunate, or I'll kind of be like, wow, that was not a great play. But I will be very careful not to, look at them, look at that. Do you see what he did there? What do you mean he just got traded to the Canucks? So, like, it can happen that quickly, right? Like David Quinn getting fired because I said, I don't think he's had a chance to have a good roster. And Mike Greer was like, I take that personally. He's fired. So, yeah, laughing at poor play is bad. Gambling. So I've talked about gambling on the channel before. I am not a fan of gambling. I've watched it tear families apart because I was a part of families that have been torn apart by gambling. And so I know how dangerous it is. But as a kid, I learned that if I gamble on something, even if it's $5, a friend of mine says, hey, $5 says this team wins, and I go, hey, you're on. I will lose that bet. I have never won a gambling bet in sports, ever. Not a thing. A team could be up 3-0 in a series, and you could say, I'll take the team that's gonna have to win four in a row, and I would say nope, because I again, the superstitious part of my brain says as soon as I make that bet, that other team's gonna win four in a row. We're gonna see a reverse sweep, and so I don't gamble. I feel like A, it's a guaranteed loss for me, and B, definitely helps that I've seen what gambling has done to family members and loved ones and to families. So, not a huge fan of the gambling thing. Not a huge fan of how much sports gambling seeped into everything. And now lifetime bans are going in for players because they're being taught this is normalized now, but they're not allowed to do it, even though the advertising's everywhere. I know that there are advertisements on this channel that are from gambling sites, which are allowed, but I will never partner up with a gambling site. I get those emails all the time. It's never going to happen. Although maybe because I know gambling is a guaranteed loss, maybe if I partner up with one of these, they'll go under within a week because I jinxed them. I'm not doing it. I'm not trying it. Magnets. Am I superstitious with magnets? Yeah. Yeah. During the playoffs, especially. During the regular season, not as much. There are certain magnets I will use for reviews where I'm like, this team's done pretty well when I've used that magnet. It is something I keep an eye on. I don't know why. It's just one of those crazy things. When your brain's crazy like that, it'll happen. But during the playoffs, there have been times where I've changed which logo I'm using for Boston or which one I'm using for Dallas or Vancouver with the idea that I'm going to maybe this will change their luck and fortunes. But if I do that for them, I kind of have to change it for everybody. But knowing how superstitious other fans can be, I also try to make sure that the magnets I'm using for other teams are ones that they recognize. For example, the Islanders, I have the Lighthouse one that I've used for years, for whenever they're in the playoffs. And I feel like since they've had good fortune when I've used it, they've usually gotten past the second round. They've gone to the conference final a couple of times. I keep using that. That's why I use that magnet in particular. The Canes, I use the double flag. They've gone to the conference final twice while I've used the double flag for them. And so I keep using that one. Also, for Carolina, their regular logo is like yay wide, and the double flag is like yay wide, so it's much easier to get that on the board and get all my notes there. But yeah, I have some superstition with magnets, not just for me, but for other teams as well. So when I was going through and picking the magnets for this year's playoffs, I was cognizant of the fact that there were certain magnets that longtime viewers of the channel be like, that's the one that you're supposed to use. Like with Florida, it's the sun magnet. I think with Tampa Bay, I think I've usually used the original logo for them as well. I've used the foot for Colorado, even though that's not on their jersey anymore. And yeah, so because I've been thinking about over the last few days, like, do I want to change the magnets as the playoffs go along? And there's a part of me thinking yes, but there's also a loud voice going, nope, you've already committed to those magnets. Leave it. Don't change it. You don't want to mess it up. They don't mess it up. My brain knows logically they don't, but that superstitious side says no. And then going back as far as radio. So back when I was a teenager, and I want to say like 87, 88, somewhere in that region, I would listen to Jim Robson on the radio for Canuck games. They'd be on the TV in my parents' bedroom, and I could go in and watch it with my dad, but I'd listen to it on the radio. And nothing to do with not wanting to watch hockey with my dad. It was honestly one of the activities we had that we enjoyed doing together. We enjoyed watching hockey. Although if I knew all the words to the Star Spangled Banner and my mom and I sang along to it, he thought that was really weird because it wasn't our anthem, but it's kind of a fun song, so we would sing along to both. But back in the days of radio, I felt like the Canucks played better when I listened to them rather than watched them. And I know I'm not the only person that feels this way. A friend of mine records Canucks games rather than watch them live because she's found that when she records the games, they have a better record than when she watches them. So there have been times where she's messaged me where the Canucks maybe lose a game and she's like, sorry, I meant to record it and I watched it instead. I feel bad. And I'm like, I don't think you had an actual effect on the game, but who am I to judge? So I would listen on the radio, and I felt like they played better when I listened than when I watched on TV. There's the nerves part too. Like I get very, very nervous watching hockey games in the playoffs, especially. It's extreme. And again, that's how I can tell that my fandom of Vancouver is higher than anybody else. I get way more nervous with Vancouver than I do others. Like, and I think part of it too, though, is that it feels like Vancouver isn't in the playoffs that often, and Boston and Dallas are in the playoffs way more often. Boston's usually one of the top seeds in the East. Dallas, when they're in the playoffs, are usually a pretty good seed. Vancouver, it's just so rare. So maybe that's part of it as well. I feel like, all right, if they don't do it this year, well, it's another 8 years till they're in the playoffs. But yeah, back in the radio days, I would listen to Jim Robson and Tom Larscheid rather than watching on TV because I felt like they played better when I listened on the radio. Which, again, hearing myself say it out loud tells me mildly crazy. But I do think that's part of the reason why the channel works. I also think, so I did the video talking about my favorite series from 1981 to 2000. And that was legit, where those are the series that I remember. Because I get very emotional and very into the moment with playoffs, which is just, I mean, regular season hockey's here and playoffs are just like, it'd be through the ceiling. For me, when it comes to stress level and just the memories. So I have those memories firmly ingrained in my brain. So you might have like memories of your first car, memories of your first girlfriend. You might have memories from your childhood about all these great memories of traveling. For me, it's all hockey. Everything is basically hockey. So that's how I remember those things. That's how I remember specific games, because there are specific games that I remember watching and getting really emotional with the result, either for the good or for the bad, and or just being highly entertained if it involved two teams that I wasn't rooting for. Just absolutely loving the hockey I watched. So that's how I'm able to remember stuff from that far ago. Because I even said to Yvonne, I'm like, people don't generally remember this. She's like, no, not in that detail. And I'm like, well, but for me, that was just I was hockey. So there you go. There's your 10. So let me know any superstitions you have when it comes to hockey, or just sports in general. Might be baseball, football, something else related. I don't really have anything with other sports, but I will say I don't gloat and I have no expectations when it comes to any team I cheer for in any sport, because generally they end up not winning. So at any rate, there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below if you've not done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always. And yeah, superstitions, really, really big part of sports. And what entertains me with this is just that I'm usually very, very logical with everything, just not this. So thank you guys for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.